Right. So my slides are here, doing the same thing. Brilliant. Thank you. So we are on a day of celebration of the work that this gentleman has done for us, and it is as follows. France is #1 worldwide with 86% penetration of IPv6 in the country. This has been a work of 30 years, that's for sure. But thanks to the words that you have said at the beginning, saying clearly what needs to be done, especially to move to IPv6 only. And here you can see that we have 6 superstars. So primarily um, France, Belgium, and recently Germany. They stepped about 10 points only in the last 2 weeks. So they were still just gold, and they stepped in. So I would expect the other countries to go as well. And obviously Saudi Arabia, because the government itself has decided. And we see that model of RCEP is applied better in developing countries because the industry is not so strong. So they need the regulator to guide them and to give them some milestones how to do that. So I think together we should be very pleased and happy with France to be #1 on this planet. If we look also at the impact of Cloudflare, which is quite interesting. So most of the websites, up to about 80% of the top 500 in each country, are using Cloudflare and they're using IPv6. And interesting enough, total Africa is using IPv6 without knowing it, because the Cloudflare service is a lot cheaper. So in this case, the networks and the websites, and even you can deploy applications without even having the network, just linking it to Cloudflare. So we have sent out this call, and basically our final call from the IPv6 Forum, and it was very well received by primarily the US partners, because the US government didn't do what France has done. They set a deadline for end of 2025 to have 80% of all the government networks to be on IPv6, and this did not happen. So in this case, the first two, so from CIO and from FCC, they are applauding this call to IPv6 only, which we have achieved, and the US is at 53. So don't send this message to Donald Trump. He might decide to come and occupy France. Okay. So taking this model from Vivian and his partners, in this case, IDate and the IPv6 Forum, we have applied it in other countries, primarily in Egypt recently, but also in Nigeria, as well as in some Arab countries, in Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, and Indonesia in 2025, and it has worked as well. So we have understood clearly how we can use the model of RCEP in other countries with certain customizations and so on and so forth, and get the top management, primarily the Minister of Communication themselves. And it has worked in the country. So Kazakhstan has already about 25% within 1 year. So this model is really very important. And France has not yet finished the work, because what needs to be done is that the enterprise, so most of the users are on the ISP networks, but more important is to get the companies to do IPv6, which will be a formidable task by having, in this case, very specific strategic customers, verticals, to do IPv6, to have, the full deployment, I guess, within the IPv6 2030 program that RCEP has. So now we are basically here in France, ready for all kind of applications from the AI, as the infrastructure is there for it. It will be very efficient for AI to use not big data, but instant data. Instant data is what comes out of all kind of IoT devices. Most of the IoT devices today are only based on Zigbee and Bluetooth and so on and so forth. They're not really IPv6 based. So this is one of the big tasks that we have in the future. And the Japanese already have some very large scale IPv6 based IoT devices will be very, very important for some verticals like solar energy, because you have huge installations and you want to manage them as such. So it will be very important to have scalability as well as security and efficiency in this area. And we've seen the models, and they are more or less similar between the US, Europe, and China. So it's always efficiency of the network, cost reduction, obviously, especially the pricing of the IPv4 addresses, which is normally not really legal to sell legacy address space, which was given for free to everyone. It's like the case in the UK, where back in 1988, when the internet had been introduced in the UK in the presence of the Queen. So Windsurf gave her 15 Class A addresses, which is 120 million IP addresses. And that's basically locked Ofcom in that corner. They are not as free as RCIP. So Ofcom cannot do any work. So I had to wait for a long time until I met this great lady, Veronica. She has a speech afterwards. And she is not even allowed to talk to Ofcom, although she managed to get UK up to a gold level with over 50%. So she can tell you her story, because this is where a big country has failed, and it took only one person to fix it. So the governments really play a certain role, especially in developing countries. And obviously, how can you make the networks to be a lot easier to maintain? So we have some cases in Africa where some ISPs have multiple country installations. So it's all cross-border traffic and so on and so forth. So they discovered that with SRv6, they don't need to send anyone to the other country to fix something. Through SRv6, they can fix the networks online directly. So even if they didn't have the money to do that, but they counted that instead of flying out people and losing them from where they are, in this case, the investment in SRv6 was an excellent thing. You can do many new applications that we are now going to be discussing in the AI area. So it's basically from the honorary chairman of the IPv6 Forum and one of the co-founders of the internet. We knew these issues back in 1999 when I talked to him to join us. And I knew about the story of IPv4. It didn't have a nice story at all. It was the most hated protocol, TCP/IP, because it was, this open source type of protocol hated by most of the vendors, the IBMs and so on. They wanted to have SNA around the world. So it was shut down back in 85 until it was reopened by Al Gore, who said he invented the internet. So I don't think we'll have an IPv6 Al Gore in this story, but the work is really yours. So thank you.